Heaven and Hell, a story by Lucien Levay. In an alternate version of history, Alexander the Great sets out and hears the words of God saying, "It is thy mission to conquer the most important thing thou knowest to conquer." Alexander, thinking, what could possibly be more important than conquering the world? Alexander then sets out on many conquests, conquering lands far and wide. And after many battles and many victories, Alexander finds there is only one person left that is not under his rule. Thus, his world domination is not complete. Thus, he does not complete his mission of God. Some of Alexander's soldiers come to him and tell him that there is a hermit that lives on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. And this hermit does not adhere to Alexander's rule, nor does he even know of Alexander at all. In finding out this news, Alexander tells his army and his people, "I will set out by myself and let this hermit know that he will either be subject to my rule or I shall slay him where he stands on top of Mount Kilimanjaro." All the soldiers agree that if Alexander did not go by himself to kill a lonely hermit, no soldier at all, that he would be a coward if he brought his army against a lone hermit. Thus they agree that Alexander going by himself to either slay the hermit or convince him to be subject to Alexander's rule would be no less than worthy of the king Alexander himself. Alexander then sets out towards Mount Kilimanjaro, and all the people parade him off.
Alexander!
Go Alexander! You can do it, buddy!
Yeah, you can do it! I believe in
I have faith in thee. Then, as Alexander marches towards Mount Kilimanjaro, before he starts climbing up the mountain, there is a rice farmer at the bottom of Mount Kilimanjaro that greets him. The rice farmer says towards Alexander,
Ahoy there, Alexander. I have heard that thou hast want to conquer the entire world, and that there is a hermit on top of Mount Kilimanjaro that thou hast not yet conquered. Will you conquer this hermit, your mission of world domination, Alexander?
Alexander replies, "Dost thou doubt me in my ability to slay or convince a hermit to be under my rule, the mighty Alexander the Great?"
No, Alexander, I do not doubt thee. However, I wonder if what you're setting out to conquer is the world, or perhaps something more important.
Peasant, you know not what you say. Of course, conquering this world is my mission. There could be nothing more important than conquering all there is, and in doing so, this hermit will submit to me. The peasant farmer looks satisfied, but also wonders with an inquisitive look as he watches Alexander climb up the beginning of Mount Kilimanjaro. Alexander then ascends the mountain, and as he finds his way, 1/4 of the way up Mount Kilimanjaro, he sees a bear. and the bear is itching its back against the back of a tree, using the bark on the tree to itch his back in a place his claws cannot reach. Alexander then thinks to himself in his head, "If I slay this bear on my way up towards the hermit, then I'll have one more tale to tell my people of how brave I am in conquering the mighty bear on my way to conquering the entire world." Alexander then unsheaths his sword. It glistens in the light of the sun, and he charges with the mighty battle cry towards the bear. The bear runs away and scurries off, away from his itching back and away from Alexander. Alexander then looks at the bear running away and says to himself, "Ha! Even the mighty bear is scared of me, mighty Alexander." Alexander then contemplates, "I did not defeat the bear, but as the bear ran from me when I ran towards it, I defeated it all the same." Alexander then feels a sense of pride and continues his march up to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Alexander then finds himself halfway up Mount Kilimanjaro. And as he looks around, he sees a wolf, remembering that the wolf is the ancestor of the dog, and how dogs helped Alexander in all his battles, finding his enemies in the bushes, using their noses to sniff out the locations of the enemies that he could not find himself. He realized that the wolf was undoubtedly his friend, as the wolf is what became the dog that was his friend today. Alexander then reached into his food rations pouch, took out some food rations of meat, and tossed it over towards the wolf as a gift in recognition for the service that the dogs who were the wolves before is the wolf now that he gives the gift to, being their ancestor. The wolf acknowledges Alexander's food rations, and instead of eating them right away, carries them in his mouth and starts going down the very footsteps that Alexander climbed to get halfway up the mountain. Alexander then felt a sense of kinship with the wolf receiving his food rations, and he feels as he has solidified his relationship. Alexander then finds himself 3/4 of the way up the mountain. At this point, he sees that the mountain is very, very steep, and for him to continue to climb, he would have to ascend at an angle that would be dangerous to himself. As when he looks at the ground, he realizes that it is not only steep, but it is also very loose, and that the mud is not thick, but eroded, and he fears that if he started climbing, he may fall down. A crow then comes and starts flying around Alexander, about 5 meters above his head, circling around him, cawing at him, as if trying to indicate or warn him of something he should be aware of. Alexander is very annoyed with the crow, as he finds the noise that the crow makes is utterly absurd and something disturbing of nature towards himself. He takes out his slingshot, puts a rock inside of the slingshot, and prepares to fire at the crow. He pulls back his sling and then fires. The crow is then hit. The crow slightly loses its ability to fly, but is able to glide down safely, and instead of crowing, has more of a whimper to it. Alexander says, "That'll teach you, crow. The sounds that you make are the sounds I never want to hear. Now you know not to bother Alexander the Great." Alexander then begins, and as he gets further and further and higher up, he starts to lose his grip on the ground and starts falling back down the mountain. And as Alexander falls down, there is also a rock there. He falls right on the spiky, jagged rock. The crow that he had also slingshotted earlier then goes towards some shrubs and starts eating them. And miraculously, Alexander witnesses that the crow then becomes completely healed. And in recognizing as such, he then motions towards the shrubs himself. He starts eating some of the shrubs. Lo and behold, then Alexander's wound begins to heal instantly. He feels a vigor inside of him. He feels a strength that he has never felt before. And he realizes when he looks back down at his wound, it's completely healed. He realizes that the crow was trying to warn him that he was about to climb something. The crow knew he would fall down. And as the crow was the one that showed him where the shrubs were, that allowed him to negate his death and thus be healed and be reinvigorated, he thanked the crow, and he pulled out some seeds and nuts and offered them to the crow as a way of saying sorry and also as a gift for continuing to help him even when he did not help the crow. The crow takes the seeds and the nuts and flies further back up the mountain. Alexander then, with his renewed strength, continues to climb up the mountain, finding that the steep incline and ascending it now is a matter of ease with the strength that he has never felt before from these magical shrubs. Alexander then ascends to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and as he looks at the top, he sees the hermit's hut. But he also notices at the very top of the mountain there is one common vegetation that is growing everywhere around the hermit's hut, and it is the shrub that he ate. The hermit is sitting inside of the hut in a meditative position, and Alexander is quite surprised because as he enters the hut, the hermit makes no motion, makes no sound, and no matter of recognition of Alexander entering his hut. Alexander then breaks a heavy silence and says towards the hermit, "Ahoy there, hermit. I am mighty Alexander the Great. I have a mission, and my mission is to conquer the entire world. You happen to be the very last man not subject to my rule and my authority. You can either submit to me, hermit, or I shall slay you with my sword, and in doing so, you shall submit regardless." The hermit does not open his eyes, does not open his mouth, does not move a muscle, and in doing so, Alexander feels like he is being insulted. When Alexander speaks, to not recognize or speak back to Alexander is an insult that is only privy towards death. Alexander then says once again, "By the fact that you have only given me your silence, you have made your decision, and now it is time for you to die." Alexander then unsheaths his sword. As Alexander gets ready to cut off the hermit's head, Alexander decides to ask the hermit once more before cutting his head off, "This is your last chance to speak. I am about to kill you. Is there any last words that you wish to say?" The hermit then does not say anything at all, but on the contrary, starts to laugh. Alexander is more than puzzled and bewildered by the nature of the hermit, laughing in the face of his own death. Alexander has never come upon a foe who would laugh at the face of being slain by Alexander's sword. Alexander then becomes curious, and as he looks towards the hermit, he asks the hermit, "Why would you start laughing when you know I'm about to kill you? That is very strange to me, and I want to know why you would laugh when you know you will be dead soon." The hermit replies in a simple manner,
I know heaven, I know hell, I know where I go, pray and tell.
Alexander, although knowing this is his final part in conquering the entire world, admits to himself that he has heard of heaven, he has heard of hell, yet he really doesn't actually know what these things are. And the fact that the hermit seems so sure of heaven and hell and is laughing in the face of being killed, Alexander becomes curious and asks the hermit, "If you laugh in the face of death, then you must know where you will go when you die. And if you know heaven and if you know hell, will you teach me what these things are, so I can know these things before I kill you?" The hermit then slowly opens his eyes, and when he looks at Alexander, Alexander does not feel like he is being looked at, but being looked through. It is as if the hermit is seeing more than just himself, but through him and looking into deep inside of his soul. The hermit then says,
If you want to know what heaven and hell is, you must be ready to hear it. And for you to be ready to hear it with your sword being unsheathed, you will not be ready. Thus you must sheath your sword and sit down where I sit. And if you agree to this, I will tell you what is heaven and what is hell.
Alexander agrees that this is a fair thing to be asked of. Alexander sheaths his sword back in. And as he sheaves his sword back in, he sits down as the hermit stands up. The hermit then stands at the entrance of the hut, and Alexander sits in the middle of the hut. Then the hermit says,
Now I will teach you what heaven is.
As Alexander looks upon the hermit, he sees that the hermit is changing and getting bigger and bigger, and hair starts growing out of him. Claws start coming out of his fingers. And then he realizes he is looking at the bear that he chased away 1/4 of the way up the mountain. Then Alexander hears the voice of the bear, but through a telepathic voice. Thus the voice is in his head, not being spoken. The bear looks at him and slowly starts walking around Alexander and saying telepathically to Alexander,
You charged everything, and all I wanted to do was get the pitch out of my bag. Why would you charge at me when I did not charge at you? I was getting the pitch out of my bag, and you took your sword out and ran at me. Even though I know you wanted to kill me, I ran away knowing I could kill you. Because I realized that you knew not what you were doing. This is why you did not spare me. I spared you. When I ran away, I gave you the opportunity to live as I would have killed you, not you However, I forgive you, because I know that you knew not what you were doing, but you may not want to do it again.
Then the bear continued to walk around Alexander. Because Alexander had his eyes forward, sitting towards the entrance and facing it, as the bear started encircling him, he then heard the footsteps of the wolf, not the bear. He heard the voice of the wolf telepathically in his head once again.
You chased the bear, my friend. You did give me food rations. You gave me food as a gift, I know, because you love the dog. And the dog is what the wolf became when the man embraced the wolf. I recognize your gift, but I do not recognize your betrayal of my friend the bear. For you to be my friend, I be friends with the bear. And if you not be friends with the bear, I be not friends with you. However, I forgive you, because I know you know not what you do. And when you know not what you do, I know it is better to forgive you. For when I forgive you, this gives you the opportunity to know well.
As the bear's footsteps became the wolf's footsteps, encircling behind Alexander, suddenly footsteps could be heard no more, but the flutter of wings could be heard. Alexander then heard the telepathic voice of the crow.
I knew that you were going to climb the mountain, and that it was too steep for you to climb. I knew that even when you shot me down with your slingshot, that you knew not what you were doing. So I forgive you, because I know you know not what you do. This is why I help you in locating the shrubs, by showing you how I was healed by the shrubs when you shot me down. And I knew this would help you too after you fell down on the rock. I know that when I helped you, when you did not help me, I know that I showed you what you should be doing when you knew not what you were doing before. Remember this, remember it well.
The crow starts transforming back into the hermit, and thus all three animals that Alexander had met ascending Mount Kilimanjaro were once again revisiting him right in the hermit's hut. Then as the crow transforms into the hermit looks intently into Alexander's eyes.
You have just experienced heaven. All these animals that you encountered on your way up the mountain to see me all forgave you, even when they knew that the way you were treating them was not to their liking. They forgave you and they helped you. This is synonymous with heaven. And as I have given you the opportunity to know heaven, I am also giving you my own experience of heaven in the way that I am treating you.
When he looks towards the hermit, he has a sense of deep regret, and he says towards the hermit, I have done thee in a very, very bad way. I know now that I am not proud of. Since you, hermit, have given me the opportunity to experience heaven, now knowing what heaven is, I feel a sense of heaven inside of me. And feeling this sense of heaven inside of me, I no longer want to slay you, and I no longer need you to be subject to my rule, as I will agree to let you to live in peace. Conquering this world can still be done when you can live here, knowing what you have done for me. However, hermit, I ask thee, and I plead, will you be my adviser for my empire now that I rule this world? I could come back and visit you, and in times when I need your advice, you can give me your wise counsel in helping me to know how to rule my empire and this world that we share together. The hermit then looks towards Alexander, and the hermit has a look of distrust. He looks towards Alexander and says in a low tone,
No, I will not be thy adviser, for you still do not know how to advise yourself. However, I am glad that you have given me peace when I have given you peace, and I allow you to go back down the mountain to your people, although you do not know what hell is, do you?
Alexander, realizing the hermit did not tell him about hell, replies towards the hermit, Wise hermit, I have no need of knowing what hell is. When I know of heaven, why would I have any need of knowing of hell? Heaven is such a great place to be. And in knowing how you have enlightened me in knowing what heaven is, I now have no need to know hell, for heaven is all I need to know. The hermit looks over at Alexander and gestures for him to come back outside of his humble home. The hermit exits out of the hut first, and Alexander feels a sense of happiness, tranquility, peace, and he feels like he has done the right thing in letting the hermit live. As he exits out of the hut, he looks and sees the hermit. Behind the hermit is the bear, the wolf, and the crow. Behind the bear, there are other bears. Behind the wolf, there are other wolves. And behind the crow, crow. Alexander looks towards the hermit. The way the hermit now looks at Alexander is with a warlike face. A face of aggression, hostility, and the intent to kill. The hermit looks back at Alexander and says,
Now you will know what hell is.
The hermit motions for all the animals to attack.
Animals, attack!
Alexander then falls to the ground. Suddenly, Alexander sees his entire life flash before him. All of the wars that he set out upon. He sees all the people that he killed. He sees all the towns that he burnt down. He sees all the families that he destroyed. After experiencing his entire life up to this moment, everything vanished. He sees nothing. He hears nothing. He smells nothing. He tastes nothing. He feels nothing. Yet he is conscious and he has his emotions. He feels like crying out, but his voice cannot be heard. And his voice is no voice at all. He has no body. He is simply conscious of nothing. A great sadness overcomes Alexander. And in these moments, he feels a desperation he has never felt before. He feels a great loneliness inside of him, as he knows nothing in a way he has never known before. And being conscious of nothing, and no more than nothing at all, he never has ever felt a desolation so desolate. All of a sudden, the void disappears, and Alexander finds himself at the bottom of Mount Kilimanjaro. And he looks and he sees the rice farmer that is about to greet him.
Ahoy there, Alexander. I have heard that thou hast want to conquer the entire world, and that there is a hermit on top of Mount Kilimanjaro that thou hast not yet conquered. Will you conquer this hermit, your mission of world domination, Alexander?
Alexander then looks towards the rice farmer, as he has all the memories of what happened when he climbed the mountain, as well as what happened after, realizing he was experiencing it for the second time. He looks at the rice farmer and he says, I am here to conquer the most important thing to conquer in the entire world that I know I must conquer. The rice farmer then looks at Alexander in an inquisitive nature and asks Alexander,
What is it that you think is the most important thing to conquer in this world?
And Alexander replies, I know now the most important thing to conquer is myself. Alexander turns around and walks away from the mountain. He heads back towards his people to tell them of all that he has experienced, from life that was before to the life that he has now. The farmer then sees Alexander walking away from the mountain. Then the farmer transforms into the hermit and slowly walks up Mount Kilimanjaro.